Today in America, 7,000 children are going to drop out of school. By the end of this week, that number is going to grow to 35,000 students. And by the end of this month, that figure will represent 140,000 lost dreams and 140,000 broken promises to our children. We have allowed for that to happen, and we are responsible for this. What's more, this adolescent epidemic isn't going to be solved by the end of the month. These numbers are going to get bigger unless we do something radical and now. These stats represent people. More importantly, these are our children, and I could have been one of them. These figures don't even begin to account for the millions of children who do stay in school, only to watch their dreams and passions dissolve while being drowned in a sea of tests. Tests which we believe help us to determine how valuable or how important a child is, are literally suffocating the curiosity out of our youth. We've replaced passion and curiosity and spending quality amounts of time on matters of deep personal interest and sold ourselves a system of mechanical learning and superficial goals. Ask yourself, why do we break learning into 7 or 8 disconnected subjects? Why don't we open up learning to 20 topics? How many doors in education are never opened for our children? And we have to stop accepting the excuse that we're preparing our kids for the future, because we're not. Not only is our school systems inadequately preparing our children for the future, but we don't know what it will look like. We do know what will be important, that our children have a strong sense of themselves, that they think critically and work collaboratively on issues of global significance, that they're reflective, highly creative, and capable of doing things we currently consider impossible. Which class is focusing on those goals? Why are we accepting this model? And why aren't we expecting amazing things? I believe we must make our children and their education our absolute priority. You see, although by the end of this talk, another 100 kids are going to walk out that door. That decision wasn't made overnight. It was embedded in them by a system of failure, defeat, and injustice that's been taking shape our entire lives. It simply manifests itself within them. Think back to when you were young. What sorts of things kept you from school? Maybe a bully or a test you thought you might fail? This issue is so much greater than that. You see, kids aren't stupid, especially today. With all the media and rhetoric about how important it is to stay in school, graduate, and go to college, kids get it. They know. So with that understanding, realize the system we're giving them is so inadequate. They're willingly accepting those consequences. Our school systems and our lack of vision is literally driving our children away. Some schools depend on lottery systems, where children chosen entirely at random have at least a chance at entering a non-failing school. We've given over our children's future to a game of chance. 19 states in America still allow for corporal punishment. You can strike a child for punishment or for poor behavior in your class. 200,000 children every year are spanked by their teachers. 20,000 request medical attention. You can't legally hit a prisoner, but a teacher can hit their student if they have a bad day or if they do poorly in their class. Classroom teachers today spend on average 5 years earning college degrees, but 50% of all educators will leave the profession entirely within the next 5. Children who drop out of school are 8 times more likely to go to prison. And there isn't a state in America that graduates better than 90% of its students. In fact, there are several states which graduate less than half of their children. That means graduation's not even the norm. I've heard it said we need a revolution in our education system, but I believe we must go further. We need a revolution in how we think about education, how we prioritize education, and fundamentally, how we value life itself. Because a child that's lost that passion, lost that fire, and given up on their dreams doesn't have much of one to look forward to. We need to have bigger dreams for our children. What's more, we need to be bold and overcome our fears on this issue. We can't be afraid to look this thing square in the eyes, knowing we might make some mistakes, but that we're going to rise to this challenge. I'd like to use an analogy. When the United States decided it was important to put a man on the moon, President John F. Kennedy gave a speech right here in Houston at Rice University. He challenged us to be brave, to be bold, and to dream for our futures. Not just to launch a manned spacecraft to the moon, but to measure our strength as a nation by our investment in that mission. And within 8 years, less than a generation, we witnessed a miracle. Men touched the moon. Mankind leapt forward, not just in its understanding of aeronautical space travel, but in our fortitude for realizing the impossible. We did it because we wanted it done. It was important, so we made it a priority. Today, we need a new mission, a new measure, and our children are counting on us more than ever to come up with a victory for them. You see, kids see us differently than we see them. They rely on us, and they need us. And they don't care how much money we make and what college we went to. They need us. They need to know from us that we value them. They need to see that we value them. They need to know how much we care before they begin to care how much we know. Children begin their lives believing anything is possible and that they can do it. They have dreams that don't make logical sense, but they believe them. They envision themselves doing fantastic things, and we tell them that they should. But too many children lose their dreams, and their passions are quenched. And what troubles me is that this is entirely avoidable. It doesn't need to be this way. One of the primary reasons that children fail or drop out of school is because we don't connect with them. It's simple, really. If a child is failing in school and no one seems to care, why not leave? At least outside of school, you might get a job. You won't have homework, and you're not going to be inundated with a constant message of failure. How long can a child go? How long can anyone go without some form of praise or notice of achievement in anything that they do? I'm a teacher. I'm in the classroom every day. It's easy for us to get stuck throwing facts and information at kids, but that's not what they need from us. They need the relationship. They need those connections, because those connections are the very essence of what brings meaning to our lives. And by the way, they can get the facts and information online now. They don't need us for that. Some cities have student-to-teacher ratios as high as 61 students per classroom. Those kids have to stand in the back of the room and sit on the floor. Forget about relationships. Those kids don't have chairs. 25% of all American children will not graduate from school this year. That's 1.5 million teenagers entering our job markets without a high school diploma, let alone an adequate education. That's the entire population of Washington, D.C. and Boston combined. We are on the brink of something catastrophic. And although this information may be difficult to accept, it's telling us an important story. But are we listening? We need to rise to this occasion once again and measure our strength as a people and begin a course of action that brings hope to our children and to our futures together. I've heard this issue called the civil rights issue of our time, but I believe it's so much more. This is an issue about how we value humanity itself. It's a measure of how we value life. And this issue, whether we accept this challenge to dream boldly for our children, will unequivocally define our generation. T.S. Eliot wrote, "Only those who will risk going too far will possibly find out how far one can go." I'd like to share with you 2 ways we can make substantial improvements with our current system, and ask that for a few minutes you dream with me. Because I think educating our children and believing in them is the best way to build our nation. There are some great examples out there about how we can maximize our current system. Finland has made educating their children their national priority, and they're showing us how far we can go with our current system to be more effective for our children. Their students are considered the smartest in the world, and the achievement gap between the highest and lowest performers is the smallest on the planet. Honestly, they're doing great things, and their kids are flourishing. Their system mirrors ours in a number of ways, but they've made significant improvements. For example, their children don't start school until they're 7. That's second grade here. And they stay in the same school until they're 13 to avoid all the disruptions that can happen with those relationships and their teachers when most children are traveling between divisions and schools. In most cases, children are paired with their teachers for more than a year. It's not uncommon for a child to want to stay with their teacher 5 or 6 years. Imagine the potential when a child gets paired with a great mentor or brilliant teacher year over year. That's an extraordinary opportunity for building children up and sustaining strong learning relationships. You see, they value the connection, and it's paying off academically. And they don't give their children homework at all. And they never test their children. Instead, they invest that energy training their children to be inquisitive, curious, responsible about education, and passionate about learning. Because they value equality in all that they do, so that each and every child gains significant mastery in every subject that they study. You know, it seems too basic, really. But what good is it doing us to spend so much time testing our children on things in many cases they don't fundamentally know? And by the way, who's taking care of the things they miss? Why are we encouraging our children to stay up all night, cramming for homework and quizzes and grades just to pass a test? That's not the heart and essence of great learning. It's memorizing. It's not working because they're entirely different things. Consider why we show students how to do algebra, but we never show them how to finance a home. What good is it to memorize when the Magna Carta was signed if a child doesn't ever register to vote? How many great ideas do we lose forever simply because the idea isn't our goal? In their schools, they don't regulate or filter the internet. They address their teachers by their first names. They don't have private schools to speak of. And they're not giving homework. And they're not testing their children. How is this possible? And yet it's working. And they're not just academically superior, but they have one of the highest standards of living on the planet. And their children are thinking deeply. They're highly creative. And they're dreaming confident dreams. Also, they spend less per child. And college is free for every citizen. But in order to make this work, they've invested both in their teachers and the quality of their training. Their teachers go through significant schooling, and the field is fiercely competitive. In fact, only 10% of those who apply ever even become teachers. Every teacher in the country has at least a master's degree. It's actually easier there to get into medical school or law school than it is to become an educator. But the true special quality here that makes them so extraordinary is that as a nation, their identified purpose is the education of their children. Not mining, manufacturing, or technology. Educating their kids. It's their mission. It's clear, and it's showing us how much more effective we can be for our children using that same system. But imagine if we didn't have to rate schools by how students scored on tests, but rather how children valued themselves, how hopeful for the future they were, or how significant they felt the impact of their lives might one day be. Isn't that closer to what we value and hope for our kids? I'm an educator, but I'm also an artist. The arts are the underlying differentiator in all education because what we know is that children are most alive when they're in the arts, literally. The electrons and neurological connections are firing throughout their entire brains. The mind lights up. All areas of the mind become alive and active when kids are in the arts. It's one of the only things we know that can do this. That's huge. You know, you've likely heard stories about children in the arts who score stronger on significantly higher on standardized tests. They have larger brains, and they're far more effective in their communities and their schools. And by the way, that's all true. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The arts have so much to offer toward making a child whole. Consider this. Aristotle said, "We are that which we repeatedly do." Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. That's scientifically sound. In fact, we're faster and better at what we repeatedly do. This is how we're understanding how the brain prioritizes how we think and also showing us how the brain prioritizes what we learn. Neurological research is showing us that the activities we do the most are the connections in our minds that get the most attention. More importantly, once the connection is made, it can't be unmade. In this regard, the time spent nurturing children's passions and curiosities for learning literally becomes a lifelong tool for them. It's a connection that's there forever. The mind is physically shaped by those experiences. This is a gift we can give children that will last their entire lives. Like a habit, it needs regular daily attention. It's why we must saturate children with creativity and opportunities for exploration every single day. The possibilities with what we can do with this information are virtually limitless. Every child needs this. The arts open our minds, and they're the perfect medium for opening our horizon in learning. Music is a key factor in language acquisition and cognitive development. The arts foster and encourage creativity at its highest level, something so important for the success of our children. It's reflective, and children use their imaginations to take risks. It encourages individual self-expression while also building community. It encourages children to do great things. It brings us together and builds our communities regardless of religion, race, or age. And studies continue to show us that children who are invested in programs where schools that have more arts programs across the board have lower dropout rates. But not only that, children become far more emotionally invested and secure. We know that this is where the most effective learning for children happens in any area. But my experience as an arts advocate and teacher has shown me that kids involved in these programs are far better communicators. They're more empathetic and thoughtful of others. They're creative and innovative in all areas of learning. They're leaders in academic achievement. They have far greater attendance in school. They work collaboratively and effectively because they do it more often. Their math and science strength is through the roof. They're community leaders. They're community builders. They're better readers. They focus more on charity and giving back, and for what it's worth, they're just flat out happier. But the true magic of the arts, as far back as we know, before math, before science, before recorded history, is that special metamorphosis that happens when a child's technical proficiency becomes fluent mastery. The goal, for example, isn't to know how to put the saxophone together. The goal is to express yourself, your ideas, your dreams. using music. That's exceptional. What's that worth? The arts unleash our children to dream boldly, and it ignites their passions in all that they do. What if we could mirror all learning around the principles found within the arts? The possibilities for our children are profound. When I was a senior in high school, I got a very important phone call. It changed my life forever. I received a scholarship the summer before, but I hadn't yet accepted the offer. The music professor, who was also my mentor throughout high school, called me. He asked me what I was going to do with my life. He challenged me and asked me why I hadn't yet filled out the paperwork. I honestly didn't have a very good answer. So, Mr. Cinta asked me to meet him for dinner that evening. That was around 7 o'clock on a school night. We spent nearly 3 hours together. He told me about how he was raised in Detroit and overcame huge adversity in his life. He told me how important I was and that my life mattered. He made me believe that my dreams were great dreams and that I could do anything with my life that I wanted. It didn't matter that I grew up poor. It didn't matter that my father left and that my mother raised me by herself. It didn't matter that no one in my family had gone to college. We spoke about life and my passions. He listened to me. I left on a cloud, and 20 years later, I've never looked back. You see, he took time. He made me believe in me and made my life his passion. He made the connection, because this is what great educators and mentors do. They lift us up above the clouds and help us to see the things that matter most. I could have been one of those 7,000 children. We have a decision to make. And so I'm asking you to consider what matters most and what can you give back. And if we don't dream for our children, who will? Thank you.